Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker, and you are listening to Picks and Pours, episode 73. It's been quite a while, folks. There's been a lot of things going on. Matt the Mechanic and I have been out of sync for the past few weeks. Uh, I wouldn't say it's either of our faults, really, but he would message me and say he couldn't do the show, and I would say, well, I'm just not going to do it this week, or I wasn't able to do it. Either I had family things going on, or, just been busy, just life catching up. Today is Thursday, November 6th, for those of you keeping track. I've just been super busy, super tired. I'm back to training full time myself, 6 days a week now. So at my age, that's definitely taken its toll. I've gotten into some new recovery type things. So my wife took us to this kind of recovery place in Clearwater where they have red light beds and massage chairs and all this fancy equipment. And I didn't love it. It was too, what's the word? Too commercial, too markety for me. And the price tag they put on this place wasn't really worth what they had in there, in my opinion. And if you were to go there and do everything, you'd have to stay there for like 90 minutes. I don't have that kind of time in my schedule. So, we went and did the trial, and then we passed on it because it just didn't seem worth it to me. I didn't feel great coming out of there. So then she found another place that's even closer to our house where they do cryotherapy, red light therapy, infrared sauna, and compression therapy. Excuse me. Cheers, everybody, by the way. It's good to be back. So I went and did cryotherapy for the first time. I know this has been trendy for a while. I've just never done it. So I went on a Thursday because on Wednesdays, I pretty much live in the gym. I get there at 9 a.m. to work with the fight team at the Muay Thai gym. I do some private lessons. I go home, pretty much eat some lunch, and then I go and lift with my buddy Maverick, who is my strength and conditioning coach. I work with him 3 days a week, and that's been awesome. We do kettlebells and steel clubs mostly, and I've been loving that. I feel like my strength is as good as it's ever been. And then I hold pads for him, and then I drive to the gym, do another private, and then I teach 2 Muay Thai clinch classes, and I clinch with my students, especially the advanced students. And then I stay and clean up the gym. I usually get home around 9 p.m. So 12-hour day of combat sports and exercise pretty much. So on Thursdays, I'm typically pretty beat up. So Thursday morning, I was supposed to have a private lesson and they canceled at the last minute. So my wife said she's going to this new recovery place. So I said, oh, what the heck? I'll give it a shot. So they do the cryotherapy there. If you've never done it, you basically walk into a giant freezer. This one is negative 120 degrees. So I was like, all right, I'll try this. I got into the cold plunging for a little while, and I got out of it because it was just too hard to get the water cold enough here in Florida. I bought an ice maker, and I would put the ice in the cold tub and it would be melted, and the water would only get to like 50 degrees, 45 degrees, not enough to really make a difference. So I go on this Thursday morning. I was feeling beat to hell. And I try this cryotherapy. So the woman there was kind of walking me through the process, and she said that most people only last a minute. their first time and they have to come out and take a break. But 3 minutes is where you really see the benefits. So immediately I said, I'm staying the full 3 minutes. I don't care what happens in there. I don't care how I feel. I'm staying in there. So they give you headphones and they let you pick a song. I picked some Guns N' Roses, and I go into this thing and there's a timer on the wall, and she says, just come out when it says 3 minutes. So I face away from the timer. I'm looking right at the fans that are blowing the cold air on me. And it was pretty uncomfortable. It was really cold in there. You just go in with shorts and sneakers on, and they make you wear gloves. Um, I guess it's not good for your hands and your feet. Um, so I'm in there for what I felt like was a while, and I turned around and looked at the clock, and it said 40 seconds. And I was like, man, I feel like it's been a lot more than 40 seconds. So I just kind of shut my brain off. I said, I'm not coming out of here until that thing says 3 minutes. I don't care what happens. I could be frostbitten. They're going to have to drag me out of here. So I'm in there and I just put my mind in another place, and I actually started enjoying it. Like the cold felt good. Um, and then some time goes by. After seeing the 40 seconds, I figured it's been about a minute and a half, and the music shuts off, and the woman is banging on the door, and she says, "You got to come out. You've been in there for 3.5 minutes." So I come out and I look at the clock, and I looked at the clock and it only said 40 seconds. And she pointed out to me that the minutes were a different color. So the seconds were in red. So I was waiting to see red minutes next to the seconds, but the minutes were in blue. And it's kind of steamy in there. All the cold air, it's hard to see, especially I guess the color blue. So it just didn't register to me. So I did longer than I was supposed to do. And what the cryotherapy does is it forces all the blood to your organs to protect them from the extreme cold. And then when you come out, all the blood rushes back to your muscles, which kind of takes care of the soreness. And I really enjoyed that part. The other thing it does, I will tell you, if you're thinking about doing this, is it will flush all of your organs as well. So it'll flush your kidneys and everything like that, because all the blood rushes there. And then when you come back out of it, like I said, it rushes back out to the rest of your body. So I had to pee every 10 or 15 minutes for probably the next 6 hours after I did this. So it delivers, what it advertises, in that it definitely took care of a lot of the soreness. I felt a lot better after I came out. And it definitely must be flushing the organs somehow, because I was pissing nonstop the rest of the day. So that's my little recovery story. So I've been training a lot harder lately. I'm back on 6 days a week. So I'm lifting 3 days, 2 days of Muay Thai, 2 days of Jiu-Jitsu, and some technical sparring on Sundays. And I'm feeling pretty good. So I'm happy to be back in the swing of things. I've also been working on a fight camp for one of my fighters, amateur Muay Thai fighter. Shout out to Jack Birge. He's going to be defending his 170-pound Dynasty title this weekend in Daytona. So I'm going to be driving out there Saturday morning to go corner him. Probably going to miss most of the UFC this weekend, but I'm going to go ahead and break down the card anyway. Maybe I'll watch it on Sunday morning before I have to drive back, if I can wake up early enough. Jack's going to be fighting in the main event, so he's going to be fighting probably 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So I'm going to spend the night in Daytona. Then I'm coming back here, and my parents are coming into town to stay with my daughter for the night. My wife and I are going to go have a little night away at a local hotel and spa. So that'll be nice as well. So 2 nights in a hotel this weekend. life's pretty good. So that pretty much catches you up on me. The only other update I have is here in my studio, and you guys can't see this unless I'll just show you. So we're painting my daughter's room right now. So all of her stuff, here's her bed, there's all her furniture and everything like that. All of her stuff is currently in my studio here, which is usually I like to say the cleanest room in the house. No, I don't like a lot of clutter. So this is like my safe space where I have my good whiskeys and I have my podcast studio. But for now, we had to clear all the stuff out of her bedroom so we could paint it. And I hate painting, guys. It's one of my least favorite things. Give me anything else. I'd rather fix a toilet. Um, I'd rather do some electrical work, like anything but painting. But we've been doing this together as a family, so it's been kind of fun. My daughter's really into it. She got to pick out the paint for her room, and she's real excited about it. So that's been cool. But yeah, just family stuff piling up. Got a puppy in the house now. Um, so things have been a little bit hectic, but I have no complaints. Life is good. Life is good. Let's all drink to that. If you're curious, I'm sipping some tequila tonight. This is one of my favorite tequila brands, and it's really like a bottom shelf tequila. It's not super expensive. I'm just trying for the first time tonight their Reposado. This is uh, Campo Bravo. It's an additive-free tequila, so it's pure agave. And if you're a tequila drinker, you know that 100% agave doesn't always necessarily mean 100% because legally, um, they can put 100% and still have up to 1% of additives or coloring or flavoring or stuff like that. Campo Bravo does not have any of that in here. 40%, 80 proof. Um, it's really nice. I've been sipping on the tequila lately, trying to be a little healthier, staying away from the whiskey and the beer, which are my vices, as you guys know. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this reposado here. So cheers again. But it's getting to be rye whiskey season. So I'm gonna have to give in to my darker urges sooner or later. I'm gonna pour a little bit here just for my throat, get me through the rest of this episode. Lots been going on in the MMA world, and not necessarily about the fights. So let's talk about the fights first, because I'm sure you guys have heard enough about the Tom Aspinall stuff and the Isaac Delgarian stuff and all that. I will address it, but let's leave it for later on. Let's talk about the fights coming up this weekend, which is a pretty good fight card. UFC Vegas 111 from the UFC Apex. Main event, Gabriel Bonfim and Randy Rude Boy Brown. So I'm going to start as Matt would want us to do at the first fight on the main card, and that's Muslim Salikov and Uros Medic. So Matt was going to give some picks, but he's on a work trip in Miami, and I guess he's busy doing mechanic stuff. So he didn't send his picks. So I'm gonna go ahead and make the picks this week. I think for the first time ever. I've disagreed with some of his picks and I've given my opinions, but I don't think I've ever actually given the picks. So let's see how this goes. Let's see how I do. Let's see if I can, bring our lead up a little bit on the scoreboard this year, because I don't know if we're doing so well. So Salikov 3-fight winning streak. He does have a loss to the fighter in the main event, Randy Brown, and also a loss to Nicholas Dalby before he went on this 3-fight winning streak. Santiago Ponzinibbio, he won a split decision. Kenan Song, he knocked out with a spinning wheel kick. And then Carlos Leal, he knocked out in 42 seconds with a punch. Uros Medic, on the other hand, 1-fight winning streak, knocked out Gilbert Urbina in his last fight back in August in 1 minute and 3 seconds. Before that, he lost to Punahele Soriano. He's got a win over Tim Means and a loss to McTybeck Oralbai. So Medic is a -180 favorite, and Salikov is a +150 underdog. So just based on the win streaks and the level of competition, I'm going to go with Salikov here. I'm going to take the underdog, +150, and given that he has a little bit more momentum going into this fight, I'm going to go ahead and pick Salikov here for the underdog money. Not really based on much more than that. Neither of these guys are what you would call consistent. Before the 3-fight win streak, Salikov lost 3 of his last 4. And Medic has just been kind of hot and cold. Going back to his UFC debut, he TKO'd Alon Cruz, then he lost to Jalen Turner. Then he beat Omar Morales and Matthew Semelsberger. Then he lost to Oralbai, beat Tim Means, lost to Soriano, and then beat Gilbert Urbina. I just don't see enough from that to justify betting him as a favorite going into this fight. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and pick Salikov. And by the way, I'm making these picks live. I'm just kind of looking at the odds and flipping a proverbial coin, so to speak. So, don't bet your life savings on what I'm giving you here tonight, folks. Or do, because some of these fights are fixed, as we found out recently. Next, we got Ricky Simón and Hani Barcelos. This is a fun fight. I'm looking forward to watching this one. I hope it doesn't get spoiled before I get a chance to watch it. Ricky Simón, oh man, what an up and down kind of career he's had. He's been so close to the top. He's got a win over the current champ, Merab Dvalishvili, even though it was a bullshit win. And we all know that it was Mark Goddard's fault because he had Merab in a guillotine and Merab lasted until the bell. He didn't tap. He didn't go unconscious. And Mark Goddard from the crowd decided that Merab should lose because he was unconscious. Even though the referee who was in there didn't determine that. Merab was a little woozy when he got up. I mean, it was a tight guillotine he was stuck in. But he didn't tap. He didn't go unconscious and somehow lost via technical submission. In any case, Ricky went on to win 2 in a row. Then he lost to Uriah Faber, lost to Rob Font. Then he went on a hell of a streak, beat Ray Borg, beat Gaetano Perello, beat Brian Kelleher, beat Rafael Assunção, beat Jack Shore. Then he lost 3 in a row. Now he's got a 2-fight winning streak. He's beaten Javid Basharat and Cameron Smotherman back-to-back. His last fight was in June of this year. Hani Barcelos, on the other hand, 3-fight win streak. He's beaten Christian Quinones, Peyton Talbot, and Cody Garbrandt. So I remember Hani had kind of exposed the ground game of Peyton Talbot and then, won a decision over Cody Garbrandt, also in June. So let's look at the odds here. Ricky Simón is a minus 188 favorite, and Hani Barcelos is a plus 146. I just think the wrestling of Ricky Simón is going to be a little bit too much. Barcelos is not going to be able to bully him like he's been able to do to Peyton Talbot and other fighters. Um, if there's a wrestling exchange, I see Ricky Simón getting on top and grinding out a decision. So I'm going to go with Ricky Simón here, but if you wanted to bet the underdog money on Hani Barcelos, I wouldn't think that's a bad move either. He's got some slick jiu-jitsu. He's super tough, super experienced. So you really can't go wrong either way you want to bet here. But because the odds are so close, it's not worth it for me to bet the underdog money. So I'm going to go with the favorite, Ricky Simón here. And that's all I have to say about that, to quote Forrest Gump. Let's see. Then we've got, I think I may have missed a fight on the main card. This is why I need Matt. He's like my producer, co-host. I don't know. He always knows this stuff. This is not my thing, but I'm giving you guys the best I can here. Again, these picks are brought to you by Campo Bravo Tequila. Not a sponsor, just a tequila that I happen to enjoy. If you're a tequila drinker, wow. All right, I guess it's working. If you're a tequila drinker and you don't like Breaking the Bank on a good bottle, I highly recommend Campo Bravo. Let's see. We got Chris Padilla and Ismael Bonfim, the brother of Gabriel Bonfim, who's going to be fighting in the main event. So Ismael is a pretty big favorite here against Padilla. And I think I know who I'm going to go with here. Now, Bonfim has lost 2 of his last 3. Okay. He got TKO'd by Nazim Sadikov in his last fight. That was back in February. So he's taking a good amount of time off. That's a good thing. Then he had a win over Vince Pichel, who's, to be honest, towards the end of his career. And he also has a loss to Benoit Saint-Denis. First round submission. But before that, he was off to a good start. He knocked out Terrence McKinney with that flying knee. And before that, he won on the Contender Series. He's 50-50 in the UFC. He's 2-2. So let's see if that lines up with the odds. Chris Padilla, on the other hand, is on a 6 fight winning streak. His last fight, he beat Jai Herbert. That was back in March. The level of competition has not been nearly as high for Padilla. I don't recognize a lot of the names on his resume here. His last loss was a split decision loss in May of 2022. He does have a lot of losses on his record, but has not lost in the UFC. 3-0 in the UFC. So let's look at the odds. Bonfim is a minus 215 favorite, and Padilla is a plus 164 underdog. So just looking at that, I can see why Bonfim is the favorite. Yeah, he's 2-2 in the UFC, but the level of competition has been much higher. I think he's just been thrown to the wolves a little bit too soon. He had a lot of hype coming into the UFC. He had that flashy knockout of Terrence McKinney. I think it was just too much too soon for him. But I think he's probably gonna be able to handle Padilla. So I'm also gonna go with the favorite here. I'm gonna go with Ismail Bonfim. Um, Probably by knockout, I would think. Because if you look at it, he knocked out Terrence McKinney, and Chris Padilla has not fought anyone better than Terrence McKinney, in my opinion. Jai Herbert's a very good fighter. I don't think he's as good as a Terrence McKinney, and that's the highest level of competition he's seen. You know, Bonfim has been in there with Nazim Sadikov, who's a total stud. He's been in there with Vince Pichel, who's a tried and true veteran. He's been in there with Benoit Saint Denis, who's still in, I don't know, the top 5, top 10 at least. I don't know. I should have the rankings up here. So for those reasons, I'm going to go with Bonfim, and I would probably bet him by knockout. All right, Benoit Saint Denis is ranked 13th. I stand corrected, but still, Padilla has not fought anyone close to the top 15. So I stand by my pick. All right, moving on. By the way, I've been into watching like series. I haven't gotten into a good series in a long time, and I got really into Only Murders in the Building. Have you guys seen this on Hulu? I just finished the whole series up to this point. They just finished season 5. Great show. I grew up on Steve Martin and Martin Short as a kid. I wasn't too familiar with Selena Gomez, but I thought she was great in the show, and I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I pretty much binge watched that whole thing. I watched it over the course of a couple of weeks. I watched it up to the point that the most recent season wasn't done yet, and I did not know that. So I watched, I think, episode 8 of season 5, and I went to watch the next one, and it wasn't there. And I had to actually Google when it came out, and apparently it comes out on Tuesdays. So the following 2 Tuesdays, I watched it old school, like when the episode dropped. And great series overall. But if you guys have any other recommendations, I just started last night some horror series with Courtney Cox on HBO. I forget the name of it, but it's pretty cool. But I'm looking for some other things. I tried watching the It series on HBO. I'm a big fan of the original Stephen King movie, and even the remakes with Bill Skarsgård were pretty good. So I thought that show would be good, and I watched, I think, 1.5 episodes, and I just was not feeling it. It was just too, I don't know, too artsy horror for me. I don't really know how to describe how I felt about it, but it wasn't good. But if you have any recommendations, I'm looking for a new show to get into. All right, let's get into the co-main event here. We've got Matt Schnell versus Joseph Morales. Let me pull up their records real quick. So Matt Schnell, I really enjoy his fights, but he's lost 4 of his last 6. So he just beat Jimmy Flick, who had a really long layoff, and he beat him by decision. Before that, he lost to Cody Durden, Steve Erceg, and Mateus Nicolau back to back to back. And before that, he had a submission win over Sumaderji, and then he lost to Brandon Royval. So not a great run as of late. And that explains why Matt Schnell is a plus 200 underdog. Joseph Morales, on the other hand, is on a 4-fight win streak. And gosh, this pains me because he's actually beaten my old jiu-jitsu coach, Sadeko Honorio. And I had circled Joseph Morales to win before I saw this. So he beat Sadeko by split decision in Cage Warriors in March of 2022. Only one fight in the UFC, but it was a submission win. He seems to have pretty solid submissions. I don't see him submitting Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell is a really tough guy, really durable. Morales is a minus 265 favorite. And now that I see he's beat my old coach, I kind of want to change my bet, but I can't let my personal feelings get in the way. So I'm gonna pick Morales to beat Matt Schnell, probably by decision. So I'll take the favorite Morales in the co-main event here. I did not know that that was Sadeko's last fight. Sadeko, to his credit, also went the distance with Umar Nurmagomedov in the PFL. This man's 45 years old, by the way, fighting at 125 pounds. So, what a legend. What a legend. Shout out to Sadeko. I miss that guy. He taught me some things that I still use in my jiu-jitsu game to this day. In fact, I had someone in a head and arm choke today. I did some jiu-jitsu this morning, and I had the head and arm choke locked up, and I remember his words talking me through how to do the head and arm choke properly. And I remember him explaining very vividly that it's not a fast choke. It's like letting the air out of a tire. And that's exactly what I did this morning. So interesting. Bit of nostalgia there for me. Unfortunately, I can't let my personal feelings get in the way of making picks here. So I'm still going to pick Morales, although I have to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be rooting against him. I don't care if I lose money. All right. It's just money. Money goes away. It comes back. Or sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just goes away. All right. The main event. Randy Rude Boy Brown and Gabriel Bonfim. Man, I just told you guys that I don't want to let personal feelings get in the way of making picks, but that's probably what I'm going to do here. I'm going to look at their records real quick. So Bonfim is on a 3-fight win streak. He only has one loss, and that was a TKO loss to Nicholas Dalby. And I believe that was in Brazil. And he was a huge favorite over Dalby, if I remember correctly. He came back from that, beat Ange Lusa, beat Kalen Williams, beat Wonderboy Thompson by split decision. Randy Brown just knocked out Nicholas Dalby in his last fight back in April. Before that, he lost a split decision to Brian Battle. And then he had 3 wins in a row over Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Muslim Salikov, who we talked about earlier, and Wellington Turman. And before that, he had a loss to the champ, Jack Della Maddalena. And before that, 4-fight win streak. I think Randy Brown just has a lot more experience in the UFC against higher level competition. And now looking at the odds, Bonfim is a minus 166 favorite. Randy Brown is a plus 130 underdog. And I told you guys I wouldn't let my personal feelings get in the way of this, but Randy Brown is a Renzo Gracie practitioner. We've trained under some of the same coaches. I've never trained with Randy directly, but you know how it goes when people come from, the same kind of background. You tend to favor them. So I am going to be rooting for Randy Brown, and I'll make this distinction. But I also believe he's going to win. So I'm betting on the underdog, Randy Brown, in the main event, and I think he gets it done by finish. I think he's riding high on this knockout win over Nicholas Dalby. He looked great in that fight. And yeah, I'm going with Rude Boy. So those are my picks. I'm picking Randy Brown. I'm picking Joseph Morales in the co-main event. I'm picking Ismail Bonfim. I'm picking Ricky Simone. And I'm picking Muslim Salikov. And I think the fight I missed is Marco Tulo and Christian Leroy Duncan. And I'm not going to make a pick on that one because I don't care, to be honest with you. All right. So that's UFC Vegas 111. That's the main card. I'm just going to take a look and see if anything jumps out to me on the prelims. And I'm not looking at the right card. So let me look again. No, not a thing really. Miles Johns and Daniel Marcos is maybe one I would be interested in watching. Jamal Emmers and Hyder Emil. But yeah, outside of that, I won't be watching the prelims. So there's that. Do with it what you will. And next weekend, we've got the pay-per-view coming up. We've got Jack Della Maddalena, who I talked about earlier, taking on Islam Makhachev, who's going to be moving up to welterweight. That's a very interesting fight that hopefully Matt the Mechanic will be back next week and he can give the picks, because I don't like doing picks at all. That's why I brought Matt in the first place, to start making picks, because I don't like doing them. But I did them for you guys. I hope you appreciate it. So those are my picks. I picked 5 fights. Do with it what you will. Bet with me, bet against me. Either way, I hope you guys win some money. Whether you take my picks or you bet against me, I hope you guys win. That's what I hope for you. All right, let's get into some of the recent news. So, the Tom Aspinall situation. I know we're a couple of weeks removed from it, but I'll talk about it a little bit. Here's my overall thoughts. It was a bad eye poke. And I know Ciryl Gane was doing well in that first round, and a lot of people were saying, Tom Aspinall quit because he was losing the fight. If he was winning the fight, he would have continued. I don't agree with that. Eye injuries are not something that you can mess around with. If you can't see, you can't fight. Michael Bisping, obviously the exception to that rule, memorized the eye chart so he could pass the eye test to fight. And yeah, the eye that he couldn't see out of was actually the one that the finger didn't go as deep. So I think it was his left eye. Ciryl Gane's finger went pretty much all the way in. Full penetration on that one. and the other eye seemed to get grazed. But here's the thing with the eyes, they move, right? So if the finger goes in, you all had that kid in school who could stick his finger in his own eyeball and it kind of moves to the side. That is not necessarily going to do a lot of damage, even though it looks really bad. But if something is affected with the retina or the part of your vision where this gets scratched, that's bad. You can't see, you shouldn't fight, especially for a heavyweight title. I think it was dirty on the part of Ciryl Gane. It wasn't even the first eye poke of the fight. Um, if you're getting the better of the guy, why do you need to go and do something like that? And I don't blame Tom Aspinall for not wanting to continue. If you can't see, there's so much at stake. There's so much on the line. I mean, financially, reputation wise, I think he made the right decision. However, it doesn't look good for his legacy because you're going to have so many people out there who are going to call him a quitter and say that he didn't continue because he was losing the fight, right? I don't think either of these guys come out smelling like roses after this fight. Yeah, Ciryl Gane may have been winning the fight, but it was just round one of a 5-round fight. It doesn't mean a whole lot. It could have gone a lot of different ways if we had seen the rest of that fight. I think the person who comes out looking the best after this fight is Jon Jones. Jon Jones had said repeatedly he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall because, who is this guy? He doesn't have the name recognition of some of the other people Jon Jones has fought. It would be high risk, low reward because if he goes out and beats Tom Aspinall and Tom Aspinall goes on to have a mediocre career, then what was it for? What was the motivation to get ready for that fight? Right? If he goes and beats Tom Aspinall and Tom Aspinall goes on to have a fantastic career, yeah, then he looks good, but he has to gamble on whether or not Tom Aspinall is going to have a great career going forward. And then if he loses to Tom Aspinall and Tom Aspinall goes on to have a mediocre career, what does that do to Jon Jones's legacy? So the risk reward thing, it would not be worth it for Jon. And for Jon sitting back and watch this, who, Jon Jones is guilty of many an eye poke in his day. One of the best memes I saw coming out of this was if Tom Aspinall couldn't take a eye poke from Ciryl Gane, he wouldn't be able to take one from Jon Jones. And that's funny. I wish I knew who came up with it so I could give him credit. But people steal shit on the internet all the time now. So if I see somebody post it, they didn't necessarily make it. People steal my content all the time. For example, I'm always getting tagged in my voiceovers on someone else's accounts. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not bitter about it. The internet's just for fun to me. Just like this, just like talking to you folks. So neither of the fighters come out looking good. Jon Jones comes out looking good because he can, then lean into this and say, I didn't want to fight this guy because, it wouldn't do much for my legacy. And he goes and quits in this fight. Although I agree with Aspinall's decision to not continue with the fight, I will say that, it doesn't make him look the best. That's just my outsider's opinion. I don't think he's a quitter. I think he's a tough guy. I think he's a hell of a fighter. I think he's probably going to have, a pretty legendary career. Um, but if you look at the fights that haven't gone well for him, it was the knee injury against Curtis Blades, and it was this eye poke. And, John Jones just doesn't have those blemishes on his record. He never got injured in a fight and couldn't continue. And he never got poked in the eye and couldn't continue. He's poked other people in the eyes. And Ciryl Gane doesn't look good because he looks like a cheater. So they're going to have to run this one back. John Jones is asking to fight Alex Pereira at the White House. But that kind of puts Pereira on the bench for a while because that's not until whenever that is, June or August or something. I know it's not going to be July. And Matt had told me this on the last episode. He told me when it was going to be. I don't remember. But yeah, Pereira's not going to want to stay on the bench that long. So he's going to have to take another fight. So if he takes another fight and loses, that kind of ruins the John Jones super fight at heavyweight. And I guess John Jones is technically still the heavyweight champion. I don't know. There's too many variables here. It's too murky. And we don't know what's going to happen next. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, let's finish on this. We'll talk about Isaac Dulgarian, who I believe has already been cut from the UFC. So last week, Dulgarian was a huge favorite going into his fight with Yadir Delval. He was a big favorite, and all of a sudden, all of this money started coming in on Dulgarian losing by submission in the first round. So the UFC contacted Dulgarian's camp, and they said, "What's going on? Are you injured? Did somebody threaten you? Like, what's up?" And he's like, no, I'm going to kill this guy. And then they said, okay, fair enough. So all this money comes in and basically closes the odds closer and closer because, when enough people bet on an underdog, the odds get closer because, the gambling industry is based on making money. So if they see a lot of people are betting on the underdog, they think something's up. So they'll close the odds. And that's pretty much what happened here. So Dulgarian goes out, shoots a sloppy takedown, ends up with his back taken, gets submitted in the first round. The UFC, from what I understand, is still investigating. I mean, this doesn't look good, right? You're a huge favorite. All this money comes in on you to lose by first round submission. You barely defend a rear naked choke in the first round and then tap to it. Even the commentators were saying, like, he's not fighting the hands. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. Now, to give Dulgarian the benefit of the doubt, it was very good back control by Delval. The choke looked really tight. But yeah, he wasn't defending it, especially at the level this guy is at. He's fighting on the main event of a pay-per-view or of a fight night. Sorry. Not the way you would expect a heavy favorite to perform. Now, he did get beat up a little bit. He took some ground and pound shots before the submission was put in, but a third grader could tell you this looks suspicious, right? All this money gets bet on him to lose in the first round by submission, and then that's exactly what happens. And from what I understand, Dulgarian's team has already kicked him out of the gym. So whatever happened, whatever deal he made um, they weren't in on it, or they don't want to appear to be in on it. And yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't make the sport look good. We've come such a long way since 1993. Um, and Dana White especially has done so much to bring this sport to a higher level. I'm sure he's really disappointed. He said that he contacted the FBI immediately after the fight, and it's being investigated. So we're gonna find out. Okay. Wrestle Time has said, "What about the Ilya Taporia allegations?" I don't know that I'm familiar with what's going on. So if you could fill me in, I will gladly give you my opinion. I don't know what's going on with Ilya Taporia. Am I totally out of the loop? I'm gonna do a quick news search here. Um, Not seeing anything in the news. So what's going on with Ilya Taporia? If anybody could tell me, I'll comment on it. But yeah, I looked it up. There's I don't see anything on Google News. So if you want to tell me, all right. All right. Wrestle Time just told me he's trolling. So listen, I took the bait on this because I'll be honest, I am out of the loop with MMA news. So if something happened with Ilya Taporia, I wouldn't be aware of it. But a quick Google search shows that nothing is happening. So Ilya is still the champ. And, I guess he's going to fight Paddy Pimblett. I don't know. That fight doesn't really do much for me. I know they got a personal beef going on, but like, why? Why are we doing this? That's pretty much all I got. We're approaching the 1 hour mark. So that's usually the cutoff for picks and pours here. Hopefully we'll be welcoming Matt the Mechanic back next week so he can make the picks and I don't have to. But yeah, let me know a couple of things in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about my picks. Again, I went with Randy Brown, Joseph Morales, Ismail Bonfim, Ricky Simone, and Muslim Salikov. So I took 2 underdogs and 3 favorites. And that's that. And yeah, Matt the Mechanic hopefully will be back next week. Matt, if you're listening, we missed you. I missed you because you're the one that's supposed to fact check all these fake news stories for me, so I don't have to do it myself. The talent shouldn't be working too hard, right? That's it, guys. I hope you all wish my fighter well this weekend, defending his title at Dynasty Muay Thai in Daytona. If you want to look him up, it's at War Jack Birge, WarJackBirge on Instagram. The kid, total beast. I expect big things from him in the future. And yeah, I'm going to be in his corner and probably going to lose my voice. So hopefully it's back by next Thursday to do another picks and pours. Our old friend Mark Fellows said, if you consulted James Krause, I'm sure your tips will do just fine. I like that. I like that little inside joke there. Of course, James Krause has been banned from the UFC for life for betting against one of his fighters that he knew was injured. So that's the backstory there. And that's all I've got for tonight. I'm going to pour myself a little bit more of a Campo Bravo nightcap here. If you're all doing the same, whatever you got, cheers to you. And until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye. That's when the music's supposed to come on. Come on.